Hey everybody, good morning. I am driving to work doing another video because I had a very interesting conversation online with a comment I saw that GameStop is selling board games at the game store. So a couple of retailers had made comments on it, and they were pretty negative. You know, they're very much hateful that GameStop was selling board games. And these were, I'd say these are the games that were more special, that were specially shopped for a long time, and now they've invaded the mass market. And one of the references, I can't remember the exact quote. You can actually, if you go on Facebook, I put a post on it through LPJ Designs. LPJ Designs, that's funny. They talk really, they're talking about PSI, and people who may not know, Publisher Services Incorporated, PSI is an arm of White Wolf, kind of, sort of, sideways related, that sells products to the mass market as a distributor, as a fulfillment house. There's been tons of fulfillment houses, so this is nothing new. But apparently, the guys at PSI have really gotten into selling board game stuff that has been primarily only specialty shops. And with that, apparently now, GameStop is selling these board games, which I don't understand how this came about. That's not really my issue. My issue was what the retailers were commenting about and how they were commenting. They basically made PSI into the devil because they were selling these specialty games in GameStop. And I thought to myself, it's kind of shocking that, like, the level of, I'd say vitriol, I'd say the level of vitriol that people were spitting out about, at least from the retailer perspective, while the customer perspective was, oh, this is great, I can get these games in the store that I normally go to, And to me, it just basically said another level of competition for retail. And I'm sure retailers don't like to hear that, and I understand the reasoning behind that. But then I really thought about it for a second, and then I really, kind of got down to the nitty gritty, and I thought about my buddy Tate here in South Florida, who has a store, and Tate's got a very unique store. He has two stores. He has a comic book store and his game store. And I've worked at his game store when it first opened up. I was there for like 18 months. And he opened at a 500 square foot place. And now the game store is in a 2,500 square foot store. And this has been over maybe 10 years now. This is how the store is developed. And the comic book store is now at 8,000 square feet. 6,000, I think 6,000 or 8,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet downstairs. They also have an upstairs, wait for it, an upstairs gallery. Now, most people who have game stores and comic book stores don't have competition, I'd say, somewhat near them. The closest probably, that I can remember in my life is that maybe a game store, comic book store, has a competitor, maybe a mile, maybe 2 miles away. Usually it's not ever that close. It's actually quite, usually they're not anywhere that close. Well, apparently in South Florida, they've mastered the art of having stores almost open up and become like next door to other stores. For example, Tate's closest competition to himself is less than a quarter of a mile away. Now think about that for a second. You've already got one comic book store, 6,000, I think, let's just say 7,000 square feet, plus a gaming store of another 2,500 square feet. And your main competitor that sells comics and games in a 4,000 square foot store is less than a quarter of a mile from you. Yeah, that's crazy. Now, which store is doing well and which one's not? Well, it all depends who you ask. Tate's got a large store. He's moved from a very, very small store to the current store he's in now. The guys who are a quarter mile from him are now moving to a larger location, a little further away. It might be, I think maybe now they might only be, instead of being like a quarter of a mile, it might be like a third or maybe 4/10 of a mile away. That's how close they'll be. And, that's competition. You can't say that's competition in every sense of the word. You got a competitor that close who sells basically the same thing you sell. What makes their store better? Okay, but you got two stores, quarter mile apiece. Tate's won the Eisner Award for his store. Won it 2009, I believe. Won the Eisner, one of, maybe 30 stores that have won this award as being the best retail store in the world. And it's a prestigious award. It's, if you win an Eisner, if you win an Eisner, Well, spirit of retailing is really the technical term. But if you want an Eisner for spirit of retailing, you're really saying something to people. You're saying that my store is that good. And I'm lucky enough to have the pleasure of work for Tate and understand Tate. And Tate and I have been good friends for a long time now. And understand the business aspects of it, which I think are very, very important. We have another friend of ours who has a competitor in South Florida, like a half a mile away from him. At one point, this is how crazy it was. There were 3 stores, 3 gaming stores. Well, let me phrase that. 2 gaming stores and 1 comic and gaming store, all within 4/10 of a mile of each other. Now think about that. 3 stores, as close as 3/10. I mean, like less than half a mile from each other, these 3 stores were. And they were battling out for gaming dollars and comic dollars. That was crazy. And even crazier, there was another store there was actually, 3 miles away that closed down. South Florida is probably one of the most competitive areas I've seen for comic book gaming stores. I mean, it's probably even more competitive than New York City. And I mean, you know, it's amazing to me the level of stores that are here. And some are great. Some, like Tate store is great. But if you're in the Orlando area, Coliseum Comics is great. They have 4 locations, I believe. It's like Florida, like breeds, especially the larger cities, breeds a different type of retail experience. I mean, Tate specifically has built a store on making it very unique and very different than what you'd expect from normal retail stores. I mean, right off the bat, Tate store is staffed probably 50%, if not maybe even like 55, 60% female. Tate's customer base is 50% female. Tate's manager, Joanne's been with him as long as I know. I've been going to Tate since 2000. Joanne's been with him, I know, before that. I think Joanne's been there. Tate's been in business 20 years, so I'm guessing Joanne has been there for at least, at least 18 maybe. You know, and Joanne, manager, she can run the shop. She knows the comics. She knows her stuff. Joanne is solid as any retail professional I know. Well, who am I kidding? Joanne's a lot better than most professional retailers I know. And Joanne's a hustler, you know? Joanne is a hustler, and Tate is a hustler. I think that was another aspect to it. And another aspect to it, which I think is really, really important, is that they're about customer service in every sense of the word. And they work from that perspective. So having a competitor down the street shouldn't matter to you, because you know that you are going on your way to do the best customer service possible, providing people the best experience of coming to your shop. And that's worth everything. You know, Tate has 2 sales a year. Two sales this year. He has his Halloween sale, and it has an anniversary sale. He just had his anniversary sale about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And Tate had a tent outside that was 4,000 square feet where he was selling products. He was saying you could fill a long box full of comic books for $35, or you could get a small box for $25. Yeah, $25, because I bought a small box, that's all I know. You know, and we're talking about a small box of comics, and he has literally hundreds of comic book boxes outside for sale with statues. His big sale, his 2 sales are his big sales, and he goes all out. And basically the way it works is, you know, you can get 5 comic books for $1. You can fill up a half box, full box. Everything's on sale. Everything at least a minimum on sale of 20%. So figure it that way. Everything in the store is at least 20% off. Everything. But other stuff has great deals. Like he has toys, 3 for $10. I mean, we're talking tons and tons of stuff that's available for sale that Tate sells every 6 months to get interest in his store. And what does that do? That gets people excited about coming to the store. The question I'm going to ask a lot of these retailers: when's the last time you had a sale at your store? When's the last time you did something to really get people energized to come into your store? When was the last time you did something like, you know, that you didn't see, that didn't seem typical? I mean, Tate has a flippin' gallery in his store. When Tate told me he was building a gallery in his store, I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. I mean, I'll never forget when this comment I said was like, what kind of idiot would put a gallery in his store? Who the hell's going to come to a gallery in a comic store? That sounds ridiculous. Well, about every 6 weeks to every 2 months, Tate has an event in that gallery, and it's all kinds of different art. Sometimes it's local artists, sometimes it's comic related, sometimes it's do-it-yourself. What Tate does, he gives an opportunity to get different types of clients to come to the store that normally wouldn't come, and that's smart-ass business. And I think that's what really comes down to, finding people to come to your store that wouldn't normally come there. Every time someone comes to your store, they should find something new. And I tell you, every time I go to Tate's, I find something new. Every time. There's always something new that I hadn't seen before. And I think that's the power of a smart retailer. And GameStop with this getting board games in, that's a smart move for them. Hey, we got something new you haven't seen before, board games. We know you like video games, but hey, here's some board games you might want to try. What does that also mean? Diversifying you, so you don't get trapped in one thing. Because GameStop, let's be honest, is going to probably be killed soon. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are suffering the throes, as other retailers would say, as a direct consumer market. And it's tough for them. But at least they're trying to think about ways to basically save themselves, which at the cost of it does affect the gaming retailer guys. But, you know, hey, at least they're doing something about it, and they're working hard to do something about it. And that's what I think is the smart part. I think, gotta stop. I think more retailers have to feel the same way. I mean, you gotta do stuff you normally wouldn't do. And it's great that, you know, for decades you're able to sell WotC products and stuff like that, just sit down and it would sell itself. Well, that's great, and that works out great. But now it's a different time. As I said to someone online last night, a lot of retailers, I feel, are using 19th century selling techniques to sell in the 21st century. And that's just not how it's going to work. And there's nothing wrong with evolving to do better stuff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about all retailers, too. There are a lot of retailers who are doing really innovative stuff and pushing the boundary. But there are a lot of guys who are crying and upset that it isn't the way it used to be. And as my dad would always say to me, things change. Get used to it. You know, you can cry about it or you can do something about it. And I just think if they were really serious about being successful, they'd do something about it. Hey, you know, things change constantly in business, as it should, and as you'd want it to be. Because if it was stagnant and boring, you'd be bored in it. You want it to be exciting. You want it to come every day at work, to come energized, coming there. And I think that's the right attitude. Now, some people are like, well, you know, you can say all this stuff because, you know, you don't work full-time in this business. I'm like, hey, look, that's right. I don't work full-time in the retail business. I work full-time in the graphic design business. And if you want to talk about disruption, let me tell you something. When I first started doing graphic design in 1993, I used to do stuff called paste up and vlogs, where they take actual pictures and cut them down with an X-Acto knife and put them on paper to photostat to go to print. Fast forward 20 years, that whole industry has been disrupted in ways you can't imagine. And on top of that, when you used to be making a very nice salary as a graphic designer, now the salaries are basically cut in half because everybody and their mother has access to Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. And let me tell you, disruption? Shoot, my industry has been more than disrupted. I just wish disrupted was the lightest thing that happened to it. But once again, what do? You adapt to the situation. You find other ways to expand yourself, such as going on the web, learning about web publishing, becoming skilled in specific areas that people are not skilled in. There's ways to make money in this industry all the time. And I just think that instead of being upset that a competitor is selling product, my idea would be, hey, why is this guy selling this product? What else can I provide in service that this guy could never provide in service? And what can I do to make it, you know, great for my customers? You know, any retailers watching this video, I hope you'll do yourselves a good justice and grab a copy of Guy Kawasaki's book, Rules for Revolutionaries. I've talked about it before on my blogs, and I think it's a great book. And I think that book will not only help you save money and make you happy, I think it's the right thing to do as someone who's involved in retail. All right, I'm at work. I gotta go, so I'll talk to y'all later.